Hold on. Panic. Panic. Ah. Alright, we should be back. Just making sure that we're back. Yes, it looks like we're back.
Back? Alright, perfect.
Alright, cool. That happens, as you guys know. And it happens because, quote, what is it, quote 4? We are only the most professional here at Exploding Dice. Where everything always goes according to plan and nothing ever goes wrong. And if anyone tells you otherwise, don't believe the hype. Alright, so, what was I saying? I was saying giveaway. Hit the giveaway. The link is in chat. Other things. If this is your first time on this channel, we have a couple of shows. We have a brand new show where you can watch D&D live. The first show is on Saturdays, which is not D&D. It's actually Open Legend, which is a really, really cool system. I just realized that my background music was not playing. The first show is called The Writhing Moon, and it is an Open Legend game, an Open Legend horror game, in fact, where we have a great cast, we have a fun time, and if you've never seen Open Legend in action before, it is... Rip again, sorry, fucking people are telling me it's down. It doesn't look like it's down from me, but I don't know what's going on.
You're actually, even on Skype, you're actually starting to get a little spotty. Do you have a storm or anything happening over there? Snow?
No.
We had a snowstorm as well.
No,
so.
let me just check something real here. Huh. Let's turn. You know what? Let's try this. There. I know it's sad, but I'm turning off my video in Skype. Seeing if that does anything to it. Are we still up? It looks like we're... It's hard to tell. It says it's live. Yeah, it looks like we haven't gone down yet. So, if
That's good.
If you haven't, all right. If you're having errors. Yeah, he says Twitch is giving us a lot of stutter. I will endeavor. I don't know if I can turn down the bit rate in OBS, but it should be doing all right now. We should be doing all right.
I'm looking. I've got it open. I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, I've got it on my dashboard. Exclamation point Photoshop. Photoshop's not open. All right.
Technical difficulties.
Gone again? What? No, he's saying it's gone for him, but it's not gone for me.
All right, it just froze on my end too.
That sounds like a Twitch issue then, because I see. No,
now it's back.
It's choppy. I don't know what's going on. This is not normal for me. Let's try this. Give me 2 seconds. I hate when nothing ever goes to plan.
No worries, man. That's Twitch sometimes. That's just streaming in general.
I know. Just putting up with all this. Aw, Skagith with the fucking Twitter love. Thank you, Skagith. I don't know if you're here, but thank you. All good now, it seems. Okay. It seems like we're all right.
See how it goes.
Yeah. Anyway, real quick, come on Saturdays and Sundays, 9 and 8 p.m. Eastern, respectively, for our live D&D shows, The Writhing Moon, which is our Open Legend horror game, and Jade Regent, which is our D&D 5th edition campaign, where we have drinking rules and we have a lot of fun. It's fantastic. Go check those out. The schedule is somewhere. That's it. I don't want to. We've been dealing with this forever, so no more announcements. Oh, the only other thing is, we had our first episode of Map Monday yesterday. That was decided on by the community, where they wanted to see live battle map making. So I tried that yesterday, and it went fantastically. I had a ton of fun, and you guys were super supportive. So thank you so much. That's definitely going to be a regular thing on our schedule. All right. Enough about us. Enough about all that boring stuff. I want to talk. I want to talk to Mike. Mike, how are
Hello,
you
what's
doing?
up? Good. How are you?
I
doing great.
I can't complain. I mean, I can complain, and I probably will, but you know. So Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you start from the very beginning, and how we get to today? Where do you come from as a gamer?
Yeah, sure, man. So I've been gaming since I was like 3 or 4 years old. Primarily a big video gamer. It's always been a huge passion of mine. It's just something that I've done my entire life. It got me into some trouble with grades and stuff in school, as you do when you pay more attention to video games than to school itself. But you know, fast forward a bit, and as far as video games are concerned, I started doing the YouTube as a hobby, playing games on YouTube in like 2011. Primarily a lot of StarCraft 2, and over the years that kind of took off and became more of a hobby, and then eventually became my profession. And I started doing Mathis Games and Judge Mathis, which are 2 separate YouTube channels for different types of video game content. As far as D&D and tabletop stuff goes, though, I was 16 when I played my very first session of D&D, which is, oh god, almost that was 15 years ago. God, I'm 30 years old, however long that was.
Yeah, we're all old, man. We're all old.
Oh yeah. A lot of D&Ders are old peeps, you know, happens. But it's coming up in a new generation now, which is so cool to see. But regardless, I had heard about D&D, as you do when you're a kid. I was big into fantasy. I was big into that stuff, but I never really played it. I didn't have the books. My dad had played when he was a kid, but he didn't have any of the books. And I saw Wizards had released 3.0 for the first time. And I was in a mall with my parents, my brother, and my sister, and I picked up the starter kit, which is like back in the day, and I'm sure they still make some form of this nowadays. But it was a cardboard box with a paperback player's handbook, a paperback DM guide, a pre-written adventure, and 4 pre-made characters with the dice you would need for the game, which was like 1d20, 1d4, a couple d6, just the basics. And I sat down with my brother and my sister. I DM'd a game for them. It was a fucking mess, but it was really fun. Like, there was a spark there, just the ability to tell a story in a world that was all in your imagination. There were no rules. There was no, and like in video games, you know, you have this sense of freedom that becomes restricted the more you play. Where D&D, you could do anything. I played with my brother and sister a couple times. I played with my friend once or twice, and then didn't really touch the game until I started working in a restaurant where I met my best friend and co-creator of Lost Initiative, Scott, who had been playing D&D since he was like 5. We got together, we hung out, we talked D&D. I eventually played D&D with another group of people that lasted for maybe a year, and then Scott pulled me into his group of people, and I played D&D with him. And he's kind of been my DM and D&D gaming buddy for like 15 years or so, and that's just kind of where my tabletop experience was with D&D. Since that moment, I've always been in and out of D&D. There've been a year or two here or there where I didn't really get to play, and then, you know, I would pick it up again, as I always did. And I mean, I've had campaigns that have gone 4 or 5 years long.
Oh yeah.
That just last forever, which are great. And then about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we start seeing this emergence of D&D on Twitch. And these tabletops, with Critical Role being obviously the biggest D&D show on Twitch in existence. Roleplay by JP. We have Roll For It by a few other friends of mine. And I really wanted to get in on that because I'd been doing YouTube and Twitch entertainment for years at that point, and I saw this budding industry that was ripe for jumping into and providing entertainment and being able to tell these stories online. And I approached Scott like a year or two ago, and he was like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds stupid. And then we go, you know, a couple years later, and I'm like, no, this is like really like a great idea. So I backdoored him, and I went to his wife, and I was like, listen, this is a great idea. Look at all this stuff that's happening on Twitch. And she's like, that's an awesome idea. Let's tell him together. And then we basically cornered him and said, like, give it a shot. We'll see if it'll work, and then we'll go from there. And that's how I kind of got Scott into it, and he's the co-creator of Lost Initiative. And we kind of launched the Lost Initiative show 4 or 5 months ago now. And that's kind of where that show kind of sprouted from as an idea. And it's grown much bigger than we ever experienced or expected it to. But it's been fantastic. And that's where we are now.
Yeah, You mentioned and first of all, I gotta give you props for being like third edition starter. Like that was literally that was back where I was when I was, oh man, I was like 13 or 14, something like that. And my friend brought me a copy of it. We played third edition D&D, and we played what the hell was it called? D20 Modern. That was what we cut our teeth on back in the day.
Yeah, I've heard. Yep, D20 Modern.
It was and back then we played the games that you expect like 13-year-olds playing at summer camp to play. We went around a compound like killing guards and taking their bling and Air Jordan sneakers or something like that.
It's the only way to play, man.
It was but yeah, it was it was a simpler time. It's really interesting to, especially kind of being one of the older guys and having the perspective on the game now, and just kind of being able to talk about where it's come from, where it's gone. And actually, we were talking about this a little bit before stream, specifically because I mean, you and I and a lot of my guests are, we started way back in the day, and to look at kind of what's going on with gaming now, like. Again, if you had told me when I was starting to be a DM that like you would be able not just to do this and make some money doing it, but like you would be able to do this and entertain like thousands of people.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
crazy.
have believed it.
Neither would I, but I mean, this is also coming from it's so interesting being in new media, with the gaming becoming a more communal, entertaining thing. I mean, I could have said the same exact thing about playing video games for a living, being like, back in high school. I mean, the amount of times people said you're not gonna be able to play video games for a living because they were just saying that because I played video games so much. You got to get a real job, and I believed them. There was no viable way to play video games and make money doing that unless you were like a QA tester, which makes pittance. And then obviously the emergence of YouTube and then Twitch, which followed, has changed all of that. And one of the things you talked about a little bit before we went live is like you don't understand, like it's hard to understand where it comes from. Like, how is this entertaining for people to watch? And I think that way a lot too. But at the same time, D&D is very much a mechanics to tell a story, right? There's a bunch of rules there that really are just the groundwork for you to be able to tell a story of your own, and that's really what D&D is at heart. It's communal storytelling. The DM may have this amazing overarching plot of who the big bad guy is and what the world is doing and all this other stuff, but the players get to push and nudge and change how the world works around them, and they get to directly see what those choices do to affect the world. And together you're telling this incredible story. Maybe it's a horror story, maybe it's your typical coming of age hero story, maybe it's a comedy, maybe it's something in between. But you're telling a story, and I think that's what the viewers find the most engaging. Sure, there are going to be people who really like watching the rules and really like watching things get killed, but you're presenting every single week a new chapter into a story that if the viewers get in on the ground floor and they get to start to watch, they get invested and they want to know what happens next. They get to love the characters and the NPCs, and they get to hate the villains alongside you. And it's that aspect, I think, that becomes incredibly watchable.
I think the very interesting thing is I almost, and I forget who I was talking about when we brought this up, but I kind of likened watching D&D nowadays to sort of the experience of listening to like old, before we had TV, you had old radio shows, and it's functionally it's the exact same thing. Like, and I think people are kind of realizing this now that, people watch role-playing games. People play role-playing games for the same reason that we all watch TV, is because we like we like the story. We want to get involved in the story. We want to get involved in the characters. We want to be there for it to happen. The fact that the fact that you don't need to kind of spend millions of dollars to film it, like to actually show things happening, the fact that it's all happening via voice and and dialogue,
imagination,
it doesn't really take away, nothing's really lost. And so it's really interesting that that people are finally realizing this, because again, when we the interesting thing though, and this is something that I've always thought about. I did a little bit, but I didn't really change anything about the way that I played games when I started doing it on Twitch, right? It was not like I was still just just trying to assemble some friends and have a good time doing it. And there are some considerations towards entertaining an audience, but at the heart of it, it's still just kind of hanging out with your friends and, entertaining each other. And
Yep.
the thing about it was, if you had asked me when I was a new DM or when I was just starting to play these games, like, if you had said, like, hey man, other people would really love to hear the stories about your characters and what they do, I would have told you, like, that's ridiculous. Why would they want to hear that? Like, because,
Right.
to us, I think a lot of times, like, to us, it's just us being silly. Like, it's just us having fun. It's just us kind of pretending to be an elf or a dwarf for a few hours. It doesn't seem like that's something that other people would be able to get engaged with. But the fact that they do, and the fact that there are so many people that are willing to, and they want to be engaged like that, has been, it's been, really, really cool to be a part of and to watch it grow.
Yeah, it's actually really wild. I think about, like, who would want to hear that and who would want to hear our stories. And then I start to think about when I was in my early 20s, really in the pinnacle of my D&D-isms back in the day, like something I would get, me and my friends would get together once a week. We'd play for like 8 to 12 hours, sometimes 15, 16 hours, depending. But though there were stories that would come out of that I would tell my other friends, and my DM would tell his girlfriend, who would soon be his wife, all these stories that happened, and you think about it like, well, clearly people wanted to hear about it because we're telling these people about it and they're interested and they're asking what's happening, and that might be like the crux of why this is so enjoyable to watch, because there clearly are people who want to hear these war stories or these epic tales of these characters that have gone through hardships and all this fantastical stuff. It's been really wild, and something you talk about how like it hasn't really changed the way you DMing in a live show. Our in-house DM and the co-creator Scott, who's been DM basically his whole life. Like, it's the curse of the DM, right? If you become a DM, it's kind of all you ever do. You don't get to play that often. His style, it's been fun to watch him because he's not very much connected to the end. He's not very plugged in so much. He doesn't watch a ton of YouTube, or he never really ever watched Twitch, I don't think, even before this. And also, I still don't think he really watches ever. But to see his style change from campaigning these 8 to 12 hour sessions, these marathon sessions every single week, and then have to take that idea, and now we have to do a 4-hour session with an hour break in between every single hour, and it has to be enjoyable for people to watch. Like, there has to be a lot less bullshit, a whole lot less fluff happening in between. It's so cool to see him maintain his style of DMing, and maintain what makes him such an amazing DM in my mind, but also see him make the tweaks and the changes to the way he DMs to make it more cinematic for the viewer.
Yeah.
To take that 12-hour session that would be in any other campaign off camera and make it a 4-hour session is really cool to just see the adaptability and the changes that come of it, both good and bad. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I've spoken on this a little bit, but I think the biggest change that happened when I sort of started doing Twitch is I used to do that. Like, I remember back when I was just playing with friends on Roll20 and stuff. I would, I did the first session of this one campaign, and we went for like 7 hours. Why? Because we were in a dungeon and we just there was no real good place to stop. We just wanted to keep going until we got to the end. And I was fine with that. Like, I was comfortable doing, like, when I would put together a new game, I'd be like, yes, so you guys can expect like 5 to 6 hour sessions, right? Like, that's a normal thing for me. And then so when I started doing it, I think when I started doing Twitch, my sessions were 4 hours, and I thought that was a pretty good, and we had a little bit of a break. But then I started working with this other channel, and they were like, our time slots are 3 hours, right? And there's a lot of improv in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of one-shots. And so, I kind of had to teach myself how to do like a 3-hour session that has a solid intro, engaging rising and falling action, a really cool battle, and then, kind of wrapped itself up right at the end. Like, and you don't have because it was working on someone else's channel, like, I don't have the freedom to end early or late at my leisure. So it's like you have to hit that time mark, and you have to hit it hard. And so that for me was a lot of people don't really understand this metaphor, but if you've ever been in art school and you've ever taken figure drawing, I liken it to sort of the figure drawing kind of warm-up exercises where you keep giving yourself smaller and smaller time limits to kind of do a pose.
Okay,
just so you
that's
can
cool.
try and get more. And because then when you actually, like, if you say, okay, 5 seconds to draw, and you just boom 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 boom, boom, and then
Right.
you change when you
You're
actually
honing
go
and
back.
refining that skill.
When you actually go back and you're like, okay, now you have 1 minute. It's like that feels like forever.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
so if you that was kind of my I cut my teeth, and I kind of learned how to be so a Twitch DM, sort of doing that, and I think it's been really interesting, especially from a Dungeon Master side. Nothing to do with just streaming, but it's been really interesting because it very heavily made me think of, okay, what is going on at every given moment? Is this moment, like, is there a lot of feeling here? Is it building to something? Is it building off of something? And if it's not, what can I do to make sure that do I need this moment in the session right now? Can I skip it? Can I put something better here? What can I do better?
To that, actually, like something that me and Scott had to kind of come to not terms on, but talk about,
Yeah.
is one of the things I'm used to as playing and he's used to as DMing is like, at the end of every day, your characters get around a table, and they're allowed to talk and hang out, and they do their thing, and they go to bed. And then in the morning, they get up and they get to the table, they have breakfast, we chat, little bits of just role play here and there. But to do that every single day in a Twitch show specifically, like, okay, your characters are awake, what are they doing? Like, it doesn't work so much because it creates so much downtime that there's just not a lot of excitement happening. So it's been fun to watch Scott cut that and be like, okay, I'm going to narrate like up to the points that are interesting, or until you interrupt, because we don't need to sit down at the table every single morning and our characters talk to one another if nothing important is happening.
Yeah.
If there's something important to talk about, obviously it can happen. But to see in the first few weeks, you can see like his older DM style still there, and then after like the third or fourth week, cutting the fluff and refining it.
So what you're saying is, and just I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Rather than kind of say like, okay, this is where we're picking up this session. You guys are sitting around the tavern after coming back from your quest. What do you want to do? Rather than doing that, he says like, okay, you guys, like, you get up in the morning, you go to talk to the sheriff, and you see if he has a new job for you or anything like.
Yeah, it's more like that. You skip like the pleasantries of the morning, the fluff that in like a game with friends in an 8-hour session or whatever is totally fine because you're all hanging out and maybe something interesting will come of it. You cut that because it's not so much needed. 99% of the time, nothing interesting is going to come out of it. So he's like, yeah, you get up, you have your warm breakfast, you get your gear on, you head outside and say goodbye to the innkeep that you guys have been staying with for a week, and you head down to, like you said, the sheriff's, sheriff whatever, and you begin speaking with him, and then we'll pick up role-playing there, where the important bits are.
See, that's interesting, and it's interesting to me, not because it's a concept I've never heard about, but it's because I think it's something I tend to have trouble with in certain times, and I've actually been playing with this a lot. When we started our new show, Writhing Moon, we there were a lot of things I was doing different with the show. Specifically, I was we were going to be a lot less mechanics heavy and a lot more kind of focus a lot more on the role play, but also I found myself doing a little bit more of that, like not asking the players, okay, what do you want to do next, but rather like saying like, not saying like, okay, who, where are you guys standing, who's opening the door, who's
Right.
Who's going to talk to, rather than I if they said, okay, we want to travel towards this location, I would say like, okay, you're walking down this way and that way, and you're traveling, and you seeing, like, I'd assume a lot of details that I'd in other shows I'd probably ask them, I'd probably like let them chime in about, mostly because I as a DM wanted to get to the more interesting stuff. I didn't want to
Exactly.
I didn't want to focus on the backgrounds that much.
Yeah, exactly. So like with trips and stuff, you'll narrate the trip, and if we as characters want something to happen roleplay wise between our characters on like a long journey, instead of like every night you set up camp, blah blah blah, you'll be saying, okay, it's gonna take 2 weeks. The road is gonna be long, hard traveled. It's the middle of winter, could take whatever, and I'll say, okay, Askren, during that time, can I find a moment during one of the camp sessions where I can take X character aside and we can have a conversation, and that's how we'll inject like character development. It's a lot more streamlined that way, in a way that's more digestible for the viewer and also keeps things rolling. And it's interesting to always have in the back of my mind as a player specifically, and one of the showrunners is like, how can we continue to make this interesting, still have character development, but also make it fun for the viewer?
Yeah.
And it's actually a unique challenge that I freaking love and have been enjoying quite a bit.
Yeah, that's something like the thing that I'm interested in is I'm always interested in playing with different methods of getting players involved and invested and trying to like I find like I have to do it a lot less depending on the cast. Like for Writhing Moon specifically, I made like I put together a cast of streamers and entertainers, not just people who play D&D, because that was what I wanted to go for. And I find with that group I have to do a lot less to kind of draw out character development from them. But with with my other group, sometimes I sort of have to I have to kind of set them up for character development, basically. And that's kind of as a DM, like that's something when you kind of experience, you kind of have to learn by your group. But I think it's one of those things a lot of players don't really realize how much they will enjoy kind of that character development, role play and talk, until they might even not know how to do it or where to start until you kind of hand a little bit to them and they can tug on that thread and find out where it goes.
Yeah, I think you hit an interesting point there too with the idea of having entertaining personalities and Twitch streamers and such in your campaign. I mean, I'm lucky enough, and it's been also very interesting because I'm used to playing with just my friends from home, not with my internet friends and entertainers and stuff. Launching a show with people who entertain as a living, or deal with that always. So the first show that launched, Edge of Morality, it's a 5th Ed at Faerun game that we're playing. It's our longer running show. And we have, myself, who's been an entertainer for years now, Bear Taffy, who's been doing it forever, Sam Strippin, who's been doing it forever, and Maggie, who's been on and off entertaining and also works for NCSoft. And to watch these people who are entertainers first, D&D players second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to watch them be able to take on these characters and make them interesting, but also have to see themselves make the show interesting with those particular characters it's kind of a blessing to have that, because I know I can go into a show and I'm like, okay, the cast is a bunch of streamers who've been doing this forever, and it's hilarious. And the type of entertainer is going to dictate the kind of the theme of the show as well, where Edge of Morality is a good middling ground of pretty serious and get pretty dark, but also because Bear Taffy's playing, a halfling bard, it can be pretty funny and lighthearted sometimes as well. And Grommen, which is Maggie's character, being a little on the dimmer side, it can be pretty funny as well. And then you go to our Star Wars show, where it's Jesse and Krendor. And if you know anything about Jesse Cox and Krendor, they're silly to the nth degree, and to have it be more maybe 70% silly, 30% serious, but still be just as entertaining to watch as a more serious show because they're entertainers, is just really cool and really fun to just see happen. It's something you have to always keep in mind with doing something in Twitch.
Yeah, and that's actually that's something that I definitely learned, mostly because when I started on Twitch, again, it's I've gone over the story a few times on the show, but when I started on Twitch, I very much did not expect to get into it. It wasn't really it wasn't a goal. I literally had started with a group on Roll20. I just wanted to test a campaign that I'd written, and one of them said, "Hey, I have a Twitch channel. Do you want to try streaming it?" And it just kind of spun out from there. So the people that I started with were very much not entertainers. They were just guys who wanted to play D&D, and that was where we started. And my second cast was a little bit of that too. But as we get into it, it's one of those things where you're like, this is cool, these guys are awesome, I love playing with them, but I also want to try, I want to try working with people who who will put their themselves into a show, who will who and the thing about it is, some of my favorite podcasts, we're sort of in an age where everyone has a D&D podcast, but some of my favorite podcasts are they're Sneak Podcast is one of my favorites, because they're all like, you wouldn't really know it unless you ask, I guess, unless you ask them, but they're all improv comedians. you know.
That's
and
awesome.
so
Yeah.
they sit down and play D&D. They're not playing as an improv comedy show, but it definitely shines through in the
Absolutely.
play, because things flow and things are natural. And someone I'm trying to oh, see you, Skaga, thank you for hanging out, man. I'm trying to find out where it was, who said it. I think it was John Arenicus, who was a player in one of my games on another channel. He where was what he said? It was oh yeah. The kind of the role play potential depends sort of heavily on the player relationships between each other's, like
Yes.
and I think it's, you know, we were talking about why a show like Critical Role was so successful, and I think Critical
Yes.
Role is ridiculously successful because of a few factors, and one of the factor is they sort of hit this sweet spot where all of the players are really, really good friends who have known each other forever,
Yes.
and so you have that level of comfort, and they're also all actors, you know,
Yeah,
so
they're all voice
they're all-
actors or stage actors. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
they're all trained entertainers. So, like, that's basically the perfect combo for creating entertainment. You can do, you know, if you take away one of those factors, you get something that's very entertaining to watch, but, you know, but obviously, like, when you put together people who have never talked to each other for the first time, is going to have a much different dynamic. You're gonna need some sessions for everyone to kind of feel each other out and get, okay, where do I like these people? Where are they coming from? You know, does their humor mesh with my humor? This and that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, to that, before I did this on stream and stuff, there was always like a group of players I knew I would always play well with.
Yeah.
Whenever I played a campaign with Scott DMing, I always knew one of my best friends, Dave, is somebody that, you know, I role played one of the best with. Like, there was, no matter what our characters were, it would work. And there would be other players that we would just it would always just meld well. But there was also the other players, like, well, if they're going to be in the game, I can't think of a time where our characters ever got along, and it just was always like
Yeah.
a chaotic mess, and it made for frustrating moments, and it made for not fun moments, and that was always a problem. Going into Twitch and taking on, you know, Twitch streaming and YouTubing personalities, it almost doesn't matter who you take in, as long as they've been doing this for a long time, because one of the great things about being a Twitch streamer and YouTuber for so long is you kind of develop the ability to improv, to get
Yeah.
along with a lot of people on it. So I can pull in, so Bear Taffy, Maggie, and Strippin for our one show. Bear in particular, Bear only knew me. He didn't know anyone else.
Yeah.
And then session one, he just picked it up right away. He got along with everybody right away. And we all found our roles immediately, because with Twitch streamers and YouTubers, you entertain for a living, so you know when to step back and when to step forward and how to get along, because you all want the show to succeed together. You're not playing, you know, in your room by yourself. You are also playing in front of an audience, and you kind of always have that in mind. Again, really leading into the idea of doing this as a show forces a lot of people to get along. It doesn't mean that there's no in-party fighting, but it's in-party fighting for the sense of entertainment, and less because our characters never get along and I hate playing with you, you know?
Yeah, the people, I actually had
crazy.
I had this conversation. I have a group on Fridays. That's my day off from streaming, where I play with. I've been playing with this group on Roll20 for like 3 years now, and they're great dudes, and I love everything about them. They are like the opposite of any kind of like entertainment group. You know, we play just to chill. You know, if you recorded our sessions, it would be the most disjointed thing. Like, we will stop to talk about work. You know, we'll stop to look up rules, and you know, it just wouldn't work, because we're not there to, you know, we're not trying to entertain other people. But I love that group, because, you know, I love the fact that when it took, that group didn't kind of like, it didn't just come together naturally. It took a while of people leaving and people coming. But I love playing it, because I know when I give them a campaign, I know they will create really, really great roleplay. Not necessarily roleplay and stuff that other people might buy into. I mean, I'm sure if we could find a way to like edit it down and keep it like coherent and listenable, people might enjoy it. But I like the way that game flows, because it's a lot of pressure off of me. I'm, you know, as a guy, like a person, I don't have to, like, as a DM, I have to think about a lot less. I just have to worry about kind of keeping these guys happy, and
Right.
it's
It feels
again
more like a personal game again.
yeah, and it's interesting because it's interesting to me when I'm writing sessions for that group and I'm writing sessions for my stream games to kind of compare what I like that group. I'm not afraid to put them through a dungeon that will take them a couple sessions, or give them like a fight that, you know, a really complex mechanical fight or something like that, because I don't have to worry about it, you know, if a combat takes too long, oh god, we're running over time, and you know, that. So it's really interesting the way I kind of find myself prepping between the two. There was actually something else I wanted to talk about, and I'm trying to find my notes page, and I can't. But I want to take a minute to remind you guys that if you're hanging out with us, and thank you guys who followed. I will make sure to announce everyone at the end because you guys are awesome. But if you're just joining us, you're hanging out here on the Fuzzy Dice Show. It's me and Mike Martin, Mathis Games, talking Dungeon Master stuff and D&D stuff, and just having a good time. We're gonna be taking your topics and questions in just a little bit. So if you have anything you want to talk about, if you have anything you want us to drop an opinion on, or just a story you want to share, make sure you let us know in chat. If you tag me in it, just at Exploding Dice, or you write like question in big letters. That's the best way to ensure that I don't miss it, because sometimes I miss them. But what was I gonna say? I don't remember what it was. So I wanted to actually talk a little bit. We talked a lot about streaming and stuff like that, and I don't want to stay on that topic forever. Where do you consider yourself as a gamer? Like, what are your, when it comes to role playing and when it comes to you know, getting into a game, what do you find, like, where on that, I say there's like a spectrum that has many different axes. Where do you kind of find yourself?
As to like the type of player I am?
Yeah, like what kind of things in a game get you engaged? What kind of things are you partial to?
I am a heavy role player, story focused kind of player. That is what I enjoy the most. I don't hate combat, but if one of the bigger issues when, say, like Pathfinder 3.5 is that combat can get very mechanical very quickly. Yeah. And my brain just was like, I don't care. Like, yeah, I know what my character can do, but we have 2 casters in the party and their spells do a million different things, and magic is really cool. But if combat went on too long, especially in the Pathfinder era, like my brain tuned out. Like, I just didn't care. I more cared about the story, my friend's stories, the overarching story. I loved role playing. I like creating characters with complex histories and you know, flawed characters, because they're just the most human to play. That's where I am. I'm very heavily in the RP, I guess, section of the type of D&D player that I am. That's what I prefer.
Yeah. That's actually something I hear a lot of, and I think a lot of people the disenfranchisement, I say, even though I think that's a little bit harsh, that some people had with the sort of the mechanics heavy gaming of 3.5 and 4. 4th edition was kind of the genesis of the games that we have now, the Apocalypse World, and you know, I mean 5th edition in some ways, but a lot of the more lightweight RPGs that are kind of dominated, they're really sort of creating a niche for themselves, and they're really experiencing a lot of popularity. I really enjoy it because I find myself on both ends of the spectrum. Like, my Friday game is a Pathfinder game, and the players in that game love mechanics. Like, if they can interact with the system mechanically by like figuring out cool combos and saying like, this gives me this, and then I can do this, and then like they'll love that. I don't mind it. The only thing I hate is when I have to DM a spellcasting enemy, because as soon as like after the first round, I'm just sitting there like, oh god, what should I? How do I know what to do next? There's all these options. I have to read all of them so I figure out what spell should be used here, because I'm horrible at that. But if you give me a bunch of like enemies to handle tactically and stuff, I tend to really enjoy that. But I just love doing voices, like just being able to sit and talk as a character, even if it's a shopkeeper. Like, I'll do that for hours. I don't care.
The role-playing aspects are great, and I don't mean to like shit talk 3.5 and Pathfinder. I
Yeah.
actually adore Pathfinder. Like I think it's a fantastic system, and I'm with you and your players in that the mechanics can create a majorly interesting situations with the interactions and spells and stuff. I think they took a step too far with Fourth. I know a lot of people hate Fourth. I hate Fourth. That was like all mechanics, and it was like very video game-y in a weird way. It's just when like for me, it was just whenever combat was like 3 hours long, and I was just like, oh my god, when do I get, like, this is just taking forever, because it would start out really exciting and there'd be descriptions of what's happening in combat, and then like 2 hours in, it's like, all right, I move 10 feet, I do this, I do 5 damage, all right, like it just becomes like numbers at that point, and numbers isn't fun for me. I like the descriptive elements.
I think a good combat is quick but feels really dangerous, rather than long but long and particularly mechanics heavy, which is interesting. It's hard to make a fight over quickly but feel really dangerous.
It is.
And that's a lot of DM narration. I do a ton of narration in combat just to kind of keep the energy up and stuff. The thing about 4th edition is interesting. I think it was a flawed system, but it got a lot of things. It got a lot of things right that I don't think they made the game better. I think it tried to do them and it got them right. And it had a lot of really cool ideas that I wish they had not scrapped completely and they'd actually learned from in later RPGs, because like there were a lot of things like skill challenges and rituals and the way characters felt like they had powers that can do something. Like the fact that as a fighter I could attack something and like move it here around the battlefield or flank with an opponent, thing, or the fact that everyone had those abilities just made every class feel like they could bring something to the fight.
I agree. Yeah, there's definitely aspects of 4th that were well done. I agree with you there.
It's but again, it's one of those things where and actually Matt Colville wrote an article about this not too long ago, about things a 5th edition DM could learn or can port from 4th edition, because I think a good DM kind of does his homework and reads all kinds of stuff, and then you find what works for you and what you can use to sort of improve how you do things. Like if you find combat isn't balanced, steal some 4th edition powers, or take the idea of minions. That's a great idea. That I usually use. What's it called? Guraith Laga says, what is this? What kind of format is this? This is a talk show. So we're talking about role-playing games. It's we're actually getting coming up on the hour. So you know what? Why don't we? I have a lot of people sending me stuff on Twitter and stuff like that.
Sure.
So why don't we dive right into it, because you guys have quite a few questions. So here's what's going to go on. If you are just joining us, welcome. You are watching the Fuzzy Dice Show. It's right above my head. Fuzzy Dice, the Dungeon Master Show with me and my friend Mike. And we are just going to be taking your live questions and topics, anything you want us to talk about, no matter how weirdly personal you get. We'll be there. If you haven't already, please hit that retweet link. Tell everyone, tell all your friends, tell your parents that you are hanging out with us, and invite them to come along. If you guys, !Fuzzy in chat, if you guys want to get your questions in, just make sure you tag me. It's just @ExplodingDice in chat. Some people did it on Twitter. That's fine too. You won't get me. You'll get someone else, but you could just tag @ExplodingDice in chat and it'll come up on my screen in big red letters, and just let us know your questions. That way I don't miss them. I saw some before, so I'm gonna see if I can grab them real quick. And yes, don't forget to tag. Where was it? John Arenicus had something. He wanted. Oh, yeah. So John Arenicus, who again he's a player in my Age of Worms game. He says, I'd be curious to know, when writing sessions and campaigns, do you allocate time specifically for improv, or is there a general plan for the whole session, but improv happens as necessary?
Well, I'll speak on behalf of Scott, because I haven't DM'd in quite a while. But I know how Scott tends to do it. What Scott will do is he'll take notes of like major things he'd like to accomplish during a session, things that he knows he needs to get across during a session, but he's incredibly open as a DM. Improv is almost 80% of the session. He knows like the major plot points, but he doesn't want to restrict players down this hallway of like, this is what you must do this session.
Yeah.
So he'll try to influence here and there, but if we decide like, you know, the quest is north, but we want to go south, he's not going to stop us from going south.
Yeah.
We're just going to go south and do what we want. Improv is, I think, especially to a D&D game, is incredibly important. The thing I know he does take a lot of time to prepare is if he knows we're going into a session that is going to have combat.
Yeah.
Whether it opens with combat or we're about to have combat because we're in the middle of a quest or whatever, then like, you know, he'll have a ton of prep done. He has all the enemies written down, what they all do and that kind of thing. Then there's prep. But if the session is open and like he doesn't know if there's going to be combat or anything, it's very improv. A lot of improv.
Yeah, so I very rarely write. I actually, okay, so here's the thing. When I'm writing my notes for a session, I never write improv into the session.
Right.
And because that, the idea of writing improv into your notes makes no sense to me. It's not something that you can ever plan for. That's sort of why it's improv. What I will do is I will write, like you said, I will write my goals for the session. So let's say the players are in town. Okay, first thing we're gonna do, let's say the first session of Jade Region. They were in town. The town was having a festival. The festival got attacked. Blah blah. So I say, okay, festival. These are the games that they can play at the festival. These are the people who are giving speeches. These are the smells and the sounds. The people, the booths they could go, whatever. I'll write a basic gist of that. Okay, then they're going to do that for a little while. Then the attack happens, and I'll write out all the combat stats and everything I need. And then I write what happens after the combat. And then I write, the clues that they get, and, this and that. And I write down all the notes in what would be a perfect session. If everything went to plan, this is what's going to happen. This is the order it's going to happen in. And then the players will do player things. They will choose to go this way when your note says that way. They will go, they will make
ever.
Yeah, they will choose.
You can plan for contingency A, B, C, and D, and they'll choose Q and R.
Yeah.
Always.
And that's where you kind of have to be open to saying like, okay, what? So in your mind, you have to say, what are they doing? Is what they're doing something that I can work with? Can I take what they're doing and somehow bring it back, into the fold? One of the things I tend to do is when my players just start wandering off. I had this happen in a game session once. The player just wanted to look for a cult that was like hid in the sewers. And I didn't really know where they were supposed to be, so I just kind of like, the player was wandering around town, and I was just feeding him details that I was just kind of improving off the top of my head. And he found a grate that went into the sewers. Now, they were doing this basically to avoid going into a dungeon that they have to rescue their friend from. And so they went into the sewers, and I didn't have a plan. I just started narrating how they go this way, and they go that way, and they pass this, and they pass that. And eventually the sewer leads them under the dungeon they were going to go into.
Right.
So they did
like guiding that way.
Yeah, and so that was just sort of naturally. It seemed like it would work. It seemed like it worked naturally, but to them, to the players, they didn't feel, they're not like, oh, he obviously corralled us into this dungeon. It's like, oh, that we went to the sewer, we eventually found this other place, I guess we're here now, we'll just do this. So it's about working with what your players give you, regardless of whether that goes with your notes or not.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly how it should go.
So yeah, the Memitim says, Mathis, what's the thing you hate most about Scott's DMing?
Aside from everything, you mean?
Yeah.
The thing I hate most
Get
about
specific
Scott's DMing, let's see, like, Scott is see, this is gonna sound like I'm jerking him off, but I honestly think Scott's one of the best DMs I've ever had, and I haven't had too many. I've had like 6 or 7, but no DM is perfect, and Scott has a tendency. Let's see. I know there's got to be something I hate about Scott's DMing. There's got to be something. Scott, all right. Scott loves to smack his players down. Not in a way of like, I'm going to kill you, like punish you like that. But if for whatever reason, like he thinks we have like too much treasure or we're too powerful, there will be a point in the campaign where we lose everything or almost everything.
He takes your shit from you?
He takes our shit from us, and it happens every campaign. Like, it will happen every single time. Because I can't be like Scott is unfair in the rule system or anything like that, because there have been times where we have come across the final bosses of a campaign, and it has been a 3 or 4 year campaign. It's the last session, it's the final boss, and I rolled 2 20s and then a confirmed crit and instant dies. And there's not, like, what is he gonna do? He doesn't go back on it. He lets it happen, and it turns into this amazing story moment. So he's not one of those DMs that's like, no, you can't kill my final boss. I worked 4 hours on this thing. I'm gonna make you fight him anyway. So his way of punishing will be like, halfway through the campaign, you've got a lot of stuff, you're kind of powerful, I'm gonna take everything away from you. And he does that at least once a campaign, I'd say.
Now, okay, so a couple questions about that, and that's really interesting, mostly because I've never physically taken stuff away from my players. I've beaten them down here and there, but I've never actually taken the stuff that they have theoretically earned. And so my question becomes, as players, do you fight that? Like, how hard do you work to keep your stuff?
It depends on how he takes it away from us. Like, it's never like you wake up one morning and you are robbed blind. Like, it's never something like that. If it's like one of those things where in one of the campaigns I was not a part of, but I heard the story and it made me laugh. They had this wine. They had come across this wine that was like thousands upon thousands of years old and worth. It basically could pay the rest of their lives, essentially. And they were in this, I think it was an ancient tomb or this ancient dungeon, and they were trying to get out of it as it was all falling apart. And they couldn't get out in time. And Scott's like, well, you can get out in time if you just start dropping some weight off of the carriage that you're carrying. And the heaviest thing is that bottle, that crate of like super expensive wine. And it basically came down to, you keep trying to fight for that wine and die, or likely die, or you can drop it and your life will be spared, but the wine will be destroyed. And it's like stuff like that. He does it in a way where you have a choice. You can try and fight for it, and maybe there's a chance, or you're just gonna let it go and be done with
it. I was when you said that the first time, because not like I don't take things away from my players, mostly because I've never really found an excuse to. But I think if you ask my players, I think my players probably don't know it, but I think I have a problem as a DM with saying no a lot. And it's a very subtle no, in the sense that, like, when my players will ask to do something, I'll usually say no, or I'll make it not work. And it's kind of led me to the rule of 3, where when they want to do something, or they attempt to do something, usually it doesn't work the first 2 times, and then by the 3rd time, I feel like, all right, I've shut these guys down too much. They're gonna hate me if I do it again. Okay, the 3rd time it works, and it doesn't matter whether it's a puzzle, it doesn't matter whether it's like a riddle or a puzzle, or it's like they're trying to make something, or they're trying to find something hidden. Like it always tends to work like that. And I think the fact that I say no the first 2 times makes it fun. Makes them think that they're like, when they get it the 3rd time, they're like, oh, we actually figured it out.
Right. Yep. I mean, I think saying no, though, and on the flip side, is really important for a DM to be able to do, because if you don't, your players get out of hand too quickly, or they get too powerful too quickly, and that can be an issue as well. I think in that same campaign I was talking about, one of the players, I think they were playing 3.5 Eberron, and one of their players is an artificer, and he was a min-maxer to the nth degree. He was a min-maxer, and he, like, the other thing is, like, they were such a powerful party because the artificer just made amazing magical items all the time. So Scott had to work out ways to, like, take things away from them, because they became a party that was unstoppable, and that's not fun. Like, there's no challenge there. At that point, you might as well just dictate, you come across an orc, how do you kill it? Like, just tell me how you kill it, because you can't fight him. Like, I can't beat you guys. So saying no, keeping your party in check is important as well. So
yeah, my Friday party is very powerful, and they're powerful in not like in just a sort of a mechanics heavy way. Like, they've just kind of have this ragtag synergy, which makes it very hard to hurt any of them, and so it kind of leads me to sort of fighting pretty hard to provide challenges to them, but which unfortunately we play Pathfinder, so when you give an enemy powerful weapons and items to
They
fight
get
them
'em at
with.
the end.
They just pull it off their body and then they become
Yeah.
more powerful. So you have to kind of find a way around that. This question actually came in on Twitter from Dean Cuddy. He says, Askren and Mathis Games, what is your favorite class and why? Similarly, what's your least favorite?
Favorite class. I don't think I have a favorite class because a lot of my character's personalities are determined first, and then I find the class that fits that personality best. And I played everything from a bear. I think I've played actually everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think my least favorite class is purely because I find it boring thematically. Is druids. I understand druids are one of the most powerful classes in the game, and they can be really fun. And maybe I just haven't played the right kind of druid, but for some reason, thematically, druids bore me. And I've never ever like sat down when I'm making a character. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be a druid. Like I've got this amazing idea for this character that's gonna be a druid, and I can't wait to play it. I don't think that's ever happened, but I've played like swashbucklers, paladins, anti-paladins, wizards, sorcerers, clerics, barbarians, fighters, because they are I've just found a character that fits it. And I understand, like, again, druids are great. They're very powerful. They can do a lot of different things, and they can be fun to play mechanically. But for me, thematically, I just find them boring. It's all about theme for me.
I don't ever play magic casters, mostly because usually I'm too lazy to figure out, like, to learn all of the spells in the system and what works at any given situation and what doesn't. And also I just don't like every time I play a caster, I tend to like run out of spells and just not know what to do.
Yeah.
And so
especially early on.
Yeah,
when you're low
and
level.
also these days the only games that I get to play last like 8. They're like 1 season sessions on another channel, and they last like 8 sessions, and so we don't really level that much. So it's like
okay.
I don't get to explore a character for a very long time. I'm currently playing a druid. I made a really serious druid for Age of what is it? What the fuck is the game? Princes of the Apocalypse. We started playing Prince of the Apocalypse a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I want to play a druid, but I want to play a weird type of druid. And so I went to the D&D 5th edition DM's Guild, and I was looking through all the homebrew druid things, and there was one called the Death Bloom, and it was a druid order that their power came from, like, if there was a dead body, they could basically, like, use their druid powers to make it be consumed by, like, mold and fungus and stuff, and decay, and send it back to the earth. And in its place, you could raise, like, a little fungus plant minion. And so I was like, that's what I want. I want to do that.
That's a cool idea.
It was really cool, and then the campaign was so not serious that, like, that's never gonna happen. He's never gonna be. And I practiced his voice. He sounds a lot like this, you know. I practiced my Prophet Merlin voice a lot. And I don't get to do it at all, because I just spend the whole session laughing at like the ridiculousness of what's going on, which is fun. Like, I love the players and I love the game. It's just I'm never gonna get to play a serious druid, and that happens every time. I don't get to play that much, and every time I do, it's never like a serious character. So
yeah, I have a tendency of really enjoying the serious campaigns. I think silly campaigns are great, and I talked about Edge of Morality a little bit. I think it's the perfect strike of like very serious and dark, but can also be really funny.
Yeah,
but I'm like you. I really like having the ability to tell a serious story.
That's why I started, we just started the show Writhing Moon. It's our horror game on Saturdays, and it was because I have my Sunday group, and I have the other groups that I DM and I play with, and things get very humorous. I think because for a lot of people, humor in roleplay is really easy to default to.
Yes, especially
if
you're new too.
Yeah, it's humor is easy to default to. It doesn't require a lot of investment, or buy-in. You can just kind of make a joke happen. It's a lot harder to do really kind of dramatic stuff, but I have this itch for like a dramatic campaign, a campaign that isn't, all jokes and stuff. And so I wrote this horror game, and we put together a cast, and we talked about this, and we're like, this is the tone of the world, this is how it goes. And it's been scratching that itch. It's been scratching that pretty well. I'm enjoying finally getting to do some serious stuff again.
That's the way. Nice.
Where I
Thanks
saw
for the
it-
question.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I don't want to miss it because someone asked before. John Orenicus says, what is your favorite universe or setting to play in?
That's tough because it depends on the mood that strikes, I guess, for the campaign. I've played in so many different worlds that it's hard for me to pick a favorite. I think that's just going to be par for the course for me for these answers. Like, I don't know if I can pick a favorite. I love so many things. For fantasy worlds, pre-established fantasy worlds, I really like Faerun a whole lot. And like 3.5 Faerun, not 4.0 or later, which is what we're playing in right now. We're playing 5th Ed rules, but 3.5 are Faerun.
Yeah.
It's so high magic and ridiculous with these powerful gods that can walk the earth and all this other stuff. I really like Eberron too, but I think Faerun, fantasy-wise, is my favorite. I adore the World of Darkness setting. You can get a little convoluted, and the rules can get a little convoluted, but the World of Darkness is really, really nice. And then there's a bunch of worlds that I've never got to check out that I've wanted to play. But I think I'll just stick with that because I could just go on forever. I'll stick with that right now. Fantasy-wise, I love Faerun for its really high magic setting.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's just weird fantasy theme park garbage, but I really enjoy using the Pathfinder world of Golarion.
Okay, yep.
It's got a lot of really cool cultures in it. Like, it's got a lot of really cool places that you can run games in. It suffers from the theme park problem where, like, there are these tiny countries that are all, like, it's sort of like World of Warcraft. Like, you have the snow zone next to the, the dark horror zone next to the,
That was actually, we tried to play in Golarion very, very temporarily. And the campaign maybe lasted like 2 or 3 sessions. And the world just, it felt very disjointed in this weird way of like, this feels weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very strange world.
The thing that I learned running a lot of adventure paths from Pathfinder and just kind of playing in this world a lot is if you treat all of the countries like they're a lot bigger than they are, so everything else is like all the other countries and stuff that are theoretically right next door, so you should have a lot of like cultural overlap. If you just treat them like they're a lot farther away, everything starts making a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I can see that actually would make sense. Because, like you said, it does feel like disjointed. But yeah, if you treat them each like their individual, like huge, like
I mean, it's like instead of having you have a country the size of a state, like a state here in the U.S. But if you treat everything in the story like it's really far away and exotic, the players will kind of they won't be like, oh, can we go next door to that cool country? And then, it lets you just kind of focus on the one particular zone you want to work in. And yeah, I mean, I like it because I like the flavor. There's a lot of cool cultural flavor, and a lot of cool stuff in it that I've just, I've picked up from running so many games in it. So, I mean, to me, it's basically that Faerun is cool too. I don't know a lot about Faerun. Everything I know about it came from like reading, like
the Drizzt novels and all
no novels at all.
Really?
All from it literally all came from reading like the 5th edition adventures.
Oh, okay, yeah, that too. Faerun is like, man, like if you're gonna get into Faerun or the Forgotten Realms or whatever, I really suggest the 3.5 era. There's just so much depth and like thousands of years of history there. And if you're like a lore nerd like I am, like you can really get deep into it and kind of like learn all the ins and outs of the way the world works and really intertwine that into a character or a campaign.
Yeah,
I just love it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I've said this before when we were starting a new campaign with my Friday group. Like we were putting the one we had on hold. We were playing in Pathfinder world, and one of my players was like, "Oh, we should play in Golarion, not Golarion. We should play in Forgotten Realms because I know everything about that." And I'm like, "That's cool. I don't know shit about that place."
Yeah, the DM definitely needs to
know.
So
like, I don't need you correcting me about details. Like, let's just not do that.
Yeah. In chat, they're talking like a little bit about how Baldur's Gate made that realm famous in a way, and you're right. Yeah, it's like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, all that stuff.
I played those, but I don't think I ever really got. I mean, I got the setting of the games. I don't really think I got much about the world outside of them, though. Like,
gotcha.
Then again, it was a very long time that I played those games.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was even into D&D back then. Like, I was just playing the video games.
I wasn't either. Another like world and rule set that I like is almost anything just sci-fi. The issue is like finding a rule set that does sci-fi well is hard. One that we're playing right now is the Star Wars. I love the Edge of Morality and the Fantasy Flight rulebooks. I love that rule system to death. It's so good. But saying like I love Star Wars as like a setting is kind of boring. It's like it's Star Wars. You get it. It's fantasy and sci-fi. But other sci-fi-esque settings are really hard to find like good settings. I would love to play in a Shadowrun campaign at some point. I think Shadowrun has so much potential. I know people love that world. Warhammer 40K would be interesting to play in, though I think it might be a little bit too like overly weird and serious for me to enjoy.
I love the 40K world. I've never played it in an RPG, mostly because I think if I did, I'd be the guy that's like giving everyone the glare across the table when they get a detail wrong.
Exactly.
Because I grew up on that shit.
That could be a huge problem. And somebody actually brought up, I actually own the Iron Kingdoms books. I never got to play in Iron Kingdoms. Iron Kingdoms like a weird, for those who don't know, like a weird steampunk magic fantasy D&D setting.
There's
reminds me of Eberron in a way.
Eberron is really cool. Like Dark Sun is a setting that I really want to do something in at some point.
Dark Sun is another one I'd love to check out at some point.
You know, it's one of those things where there's so many cool places to run games, and you just don't have enough time to, you know, to do all of them. Like, oh man, if only you could run a game in every. I don't think I'm burned out on fantasy enough yet to get into like sci-fi. Just doesn't really hold the same interest for me.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. It might at some point. Control-Alt-Frank says, do you have a specific plan for how Thonk will die? Or will it be improv?
So, Thonk, for those who don't know, is my my character in Edge of Morality. He's a half-orc cleric of Grumsh, which is really fun. He's the orc war god of, like, chaos and war and all that stuff. I don't have a plan of how he would die. I would hope that he dies in battle the way he'd like to go, or he dies in service of his god, or the party just kills him. But I don't think that's going to happen because the party, I don't want to get too much into the campaign, but I adore the dynamic of our party, and there's so much tension there, but a mutual respect for the characters, and they look out for one another. I don't think the party would kill me. They have no reason to kill me, and I wouldn't kill them. If he dies, I sincerely hope he goes in battle. That'd be the only way he would accept his death.
So I was reading something on Twitter, but yeah, man, character death. I need to find a way to get some like. I have to find a cool point to put some actual like death tension back into my games. Some of my games are too low level, so it's like I tend to treat low level characters with kid gloves a little bit, so we don't have to worry about it that much.
Yep.
I'd
say like as far as Scott as a DM, that might be one of his bigger weaknesses or one of his bigger strengths. He does not like killing players.
Well, I'd hope not. That's illegal.
Right, but like, you know what I mean? Like, what I mean by that is, as far as player death is concerned, he doesn't like let the mechanics kill a player if he doesn't think the player deserves to die. He hates seeing a player die because the rolls didn't go the player's way.
Yeah,
that is a dumb way to go. He's totally fine with like putting you in mortal peril and giving you a ton of chances to stay alive. And if you fail those tons of chances, then you die. So be it.
Yeah.
But he's not the type of DM who's like, well, you know, the rolls didn't go your way. Sorry, you're dead. Because it's just not. It's not a personal way to go. We've had very few deaths in our games over the years, but when the deaths happen, they're so dramatic. Every time a character has died, I can always think of at least one player breaking down into tears because the character died, because it's such a very important and dramatic moment. That's the kind of deaths I like in the game.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't really mind throwing the dice at my players late in a game, and saying like, at this point, we've played for long enough where, like, for example, my Friday game, my players are level 8, and they are powerful as shit. So I told them straight up, I said, like, there's, they're gonna you're gonna get into situations at this point in the game where stuff is lethal, like things will destroy you, and I'm not really gonna do much to pull you out of those, because I think at this point it would feel cheap if I did. But by the other token is I definitely treat lower level characters with a lot, like I try and make combat and stuff feel lethal but not actually be lethal, because I don't want a player losing a character early on into the game. Like I don't want them to have to kind of, because there's not that many options for bringing those characters back, and also because if they have to, for example, make a new character, it's not going to be their first choice, you know? The one they want to play is the one that they were playing. So I don't want to deal with that. Later in the game, I don't really mind, especially when the players have the resources to, you know, to fight back against it. Because, you know,
that makes sense.
That's how you kind of create those. And obviously, as a DM, you sort of work to help them create those particular, like if there is a chance of it happening, like, you know, as a DM, you can kind of nudge things along to help it be a little bit more heroic or a little bit more, you know, dramatic. But it hasn't really come up. I think the only time it happened was when I rolled a crit against a level 2 player, and I was like, it was one of those things where I was using a Roll20 API script, so it's like it rolled the crit and then it just rolled the damage right after.
Oh, geez.
And so it's like I didn't even have time to like to fudge it myself. Like it was just fucking 40 damage on the screen, and he's like, oh well, I'm done.
That's funny.
Yeah,
it's terrible, but it's also funny.
All right, so I'm looking for another. Oh, here's another one. So Control Frank says, what are some of your best, or I'm assuming favorite, homebrews that you use?
Homebrews rules wise, man, over the years we've played a ton of different homebrew stuff. One of the favorite homebrews that I've ever played was a homebrew Wild Mage, because Wild Magic didn't exist in Pathfinder when we were playing it. It may now. There's like some weird third-party stuff, but also Wild Magic was always weirdly inconsistent in a bad way, not in a good way. Like almost unplayable because it was just too wild. It was too out of control. So Scott sat down for like a week and he homebrewed the shit out of a playable Wild Mage that still kept the flavor of random magics happening, but to the point where, you know, if you're casting a level 1 spell, you're not going to accidentally cast Death Ray on your friend or whatever and then, you know, disintegrate and they're just going to die. So I think my favorite ever was the homebrew Wild Mage that I got to play, which was really fun.
If you're talking, and I don't know if this it counts as homebrew, because it's not my homebrew, but it's third-party publications, which is pretty much homebrew.
We've used a ton of those.
In Pathfinder, one of my favorite publishers is a company called Dreamscarred Press. And they put out this thing for Pathfinder called the Path of War, and what it did essentially was give you a bunch of classes in Pathfinder that functionally like 4th edition classes, in the sense that rather than just in Pathfinder, you basically, when you're a fighter, you're a melee attack, and you don't really have much else. You have other tools that you can get if you invest feats, but if you want to be good at melee attacking, you can't really invest in much else, and that makes melee characters very one note, and that's the biggest problem with the system. This basically makes turns attacks into spells, and in the sense that you have maneuvers that do cool things. They have extra power. They can do have effects, you know, all this kind of stuff. And basically, it made being a fighter, being a martial character, really, really cool. And so I built some really cool. I built this character called the Golden Lion, and he was named after the Golden Lion maneuver tree, which was basically you shout commands at your allies to give them free movement or free attacks or reposition them or demoralize enemies and stuff. And it basically let me play as like a battlefield commander type.
That's cool.
And that was really cool, and I really enjoyed the role play and the kind of combat and stuff. So that is if I'm playing Pathfinder, I will almost always ask if I can use some form of that, because it's just really interesting.
Yeah, I've heard of Dreamscarred Press. We've used a lot of their stuff in the past too. They've got some good stuff.
Yeah, they. I don't know much of what they're doing these days. They were actually, ironically, one of the writers for Dreamscard Press, a friend of mine, was literally the first guest I ever had on the show.
That's awesome.
This is way back. It was a year ago, almost. I think it was more. But yeah, it was. They're really cool people. They're not a huge publisher, and I think they need more love than they get, because people were always telling me that Pathfinder needs an update, and I'm like, all right, if you want to rebuild, like, do a Pathfinder 2 or, you know, a new edition, fucking give it to Dreamscard. They'll do it. Like, they'll do it right.
Yeah, if you're still playing Pathfinder, like, nowadays, and you want a lot of new, really cool material, definitely give Dreamscard Press a go. They've got some awesome stuff.
There's also this really interesting homebrew called Spheres of Power, which is a revamp for the Magic casting system that makes it this really interesting, new thing, and this kind of interesting... engage. I can't explain it fully, but look it up on Google if you play 3.5 or Pathfinder. It's a really cool homebrew. I'm gonna shoot through, looks for some other questions. If you guys haven't already, just tag Exploding Dice, ask a question, give us a story, something you want to talk about, and we will definitely discuss it. We got some time here.
Somebody said, what's the worst rulebook / world that I've played in?
Oh yeah.
That's a tough one. What is the worst one you've played in? I'm curious.
You mean
worst world and rulebook that you've played in?
Okay. Well, I played in a lot of. So that's hard to quantify because I've played in a lot of bad homebrew worlds.
Yeah, understandable.
Okay, so I was way back when I was a brand new DM. I was running a 4th edition game, and I had a couple players, and we were playing this homebrew game that was not very good. I was not a good writer. It was not very good, but one of the players said, "Hey, would you like to be a player in my ongoing campaign? You know, we lost someone. We need someone else." So he had invited me to this game, and I was like, "Sure, whatever." And he was not a particularly good player. I wasn't really expecting much out of it. And so I showed up the first session, and he was using the city of Ptalis, which, if you don't know, is this city that was written by Monty Cook. It's huge. It's got a map that is like ridiculously big, and it's got a source book that basically like is a campaign guide for just this city. That's like 380 pages. It's a huge book in a huge city. He was using the map for that as a city that the players would like, as literally just a stopover town that the players like visited on their way to somewhere more important. And there was like a whole city, and the players couldn't do anything in it because they were on this quest to find like this list of drugs or something they had to buy to put together so they could then leave. And I'm just sitting there watching the players navigate this huge map and do nothing with it. And I'm like, this world is horrible. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. I don't know about the worst rulebook I've ever played with. Fatal, maybe? I don't know. Like,
I don't know what that is.
You don't need to.
Some of the worst rules I've played with, I will say, like the first go at D20 Star Wars was pretty fucking garbage. It was pretty bad. There was so many balancing issues. It was just broken in so many ways.
Yeah.
I did not like 3.0 Star Wars. One of the weirder worlds I don't particularly enjoy, I wonder if the book right here, World of Darkness, I like if you limit it to like vampires and werewolves and mages, like the core 3. Once you start leaking in like the changelings and the Prometheans and all that other stuff and the ghosts and all that stuff, it gets like comedy levels of like ridiculous in a world that's supposed to be super dark and serious. And like I think it's Prometheus or Proteans or something. It's basically your Frankenstein's monster creature is what that world is. That is freaking ridiculous. And I remember, I think I DM'd for somebody that was playing one of my friends, and he was like, you had to keep like a charge, like you needed an electrical charge running through you at all times, and your special abilities took from that charge. And I remember one of my friends, like, he's like, well, why don't I just rip out a car battery and like carry it in a backpack and hook it up to myself, and I'll just have a charge for like a week or something. And he's just this Frankenstein monster with a car battery hooked up to him, just so he always has an electric charge running through him. It was ridiculous.
That really smacks of them saying like, oh, we have these monsters, but we need more stuff. What are some other monsters that exist? And
that's exactly what it is. Like, the World of Darkness got so freaking jam-packed of stuff. I'm looking at my stack of them right here. There's so many just random crap you can just play in the world. It just feels too full of. It's like, how do humans not know anything exists with that much stuff?
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you.
Oh, it's so silly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of not great worlds out there. Most of them I think can be put down to just bad homebrew, but some official worlds are not particularly great. Yeah, I've played some bad games. People are saying, oh, Rift is cool. I haven't played it in fucking decades, but
I hear people talk about Rifts. I've never played Rifts. I don't know. I'm not even quite sure what
superheroes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How would you run a superhero campaign and not make it feel ridiculous?
It's again, I played a very old version of Rifts. I don't know how I don't know much about the way it was run, because I interacted very little with the rules back then. I was like 14. So like, you know, the rules themselves meant very little to me, but it was an interesting system. It's no, Rifts is not. Oh, am I thinking of the other thing? Is Rifts
I have no idea. I've never heard of Rifts.
Hold on, is Rifts the plane robots? Tell me.
Rifts.
Tell me if Rifts is the plane robots.
Rifts role playing is a multi-genre role playing game created by Kevin Saimbita in 1990. Oh, that's a cool looking book.
Oh, Rifts is a bunch of.
I think I have that book somewhere in my mom's house.
You know what
post-apocalyptic science fiction. Interesting.
Hold on. What am I thinking of? Because I seem to remember. Oh no, I'm thinking. Yeah, no. This is something different than I'm thinking of. I was thinking of something else. It wasn't Rifts. I never played Rifts. I played something different that I must have gotten confused with. I'll have to figure it out. I remember there was this game that we had, and it was there was an ad for it on the back of on the back page of comic books, and that was how we got the rule books back then. I don't remember what it was though. Yeah, Rifts is post-apocalypse. All right, so this Ravana says, well, we were just talking about this. What are your thoughts on Rifts, the blending of sci-fi and fantasy? How they describe relationships of gods and men was fun. Wondering how your experiences have fared. Not enough to comment. That's basically it.
I like the idea of it though. Like, I've always had that's why Shadowrun appeals to me so much, because it's like a futuristic setting with all the sci-fi technology, and all of a sudden magic starts coming back into the world, and this sci-fi setting with magic and elves coming back and dwarves coming back really appeals to me. And Rifts kind of seems to fit that idea of, you know, these other dimensions colliding with Earth and having sci-fi and fantasy and all this other stuff kind of coming in. That's I think it's a cool idea. I would have to take a look. It looks like the Ultimate Edition was released in 2005, so I wonder if it's even in print anymore. But that looks really neat.
I think I may I may know one of the writers. Yeah, I know one of the guys from Palladium, so I will or who was from Palladium. So I'll have to contact him and see if I can get some opinions on it. I wanted to get to, well, this one just came in. It was really interesting. Zukla says, I've been using Tabletop Simulator to play online. Why is it seldom used by Twitch streamers? That's an interesting question. And I think it's interesting for a lot of ways. The first is probably because it requires downloading, and it has it's fairly complex.
Yeah. My takeaway from Tabletop Simulator, I think Tabletop Simulator is really great for simple tabletop games.
For board games more than anything, I think.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, exactly. It's a great board game thing, but once you have a lot of pieces moving and a lot of things on the board, it gets very clunky very quickly, because it's very physics-based and things can go flying. Roll20, and, you know, just I know one of the people who made Roll20, so just like, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm sucking his dick. But Roll20 is really, once you understand it especially, Roll20 is a fantastic, smooth tool for Dungeons and Dragons. And you can do other RPG systems on it as well. Edge of the Empire works perfectly on it. I love Roll20.
Roll20 I think is probably the reason that online tabletop was able to sort of reach. Like, without Roll20, I don't think there would have been as much enthusiasm for something like Critical Role, for all of the other stuff that, you know, that has just exploded in the last couple years, because the thing about Roll20 is it's simple to use. Anyone can just, you don't have to download anything, you don't have to buy anything, you don't have to, like, okay, let me show my age a little bit. I remember back in the the mid 2000s when I was on the computer and we were talking with a bunch of friends, like, hey, can you play D&D online? And like, yeah, there's this thing called like Map Tool, and there's this thing called like Fantasy Grounds. I remember trying to get 4 people to download Fantasy Grounds and install it and then connect it to each other and try and use it. By the time you figured out how to get everyone together to play a game, it was like
a mess.
It was like a month later. Like, you didn't even want to play anymore. And so that was what we used to have to do when we wanted to try and play, you know, role-playing games online. And so Roll20 just the same thing. Tabletop Simulator, fantastic for simulating a board game table, like a game that requires tactile things. I don't know if you're familiar with this. There's this game called Kingdom Death Monster, which is the coolest looking board game in the world. If you haven't looked into it, definitely check it out. But it's got minis, and it's got cards, and it's got boards, and if you're doing something like that, Tabletop Simulator can be really cool because you can have all that stuff in front of you. But D&D, you don't really need all that stuff. It's kind of extra, and I think Roll20 showed us that. Like, you just need to be able to move a token on a grid, and everything else is almost incidental, you know?
Yep, exactly.
And that's why you don't see many people using it, because it's not the Occam's razor. It's not the simplest tool to do, you know, to get the most done.
Yep.
And again, not to badmouth it, like I'm putting together right now a show where we can test out Kingdom Death Monster on stream with someone who knows it, and we're going to be using Tabletop Simulator. Like, that's going to make that a lot more interesting and a lot more cool to watch. But Roll20, I think, just makes D&D stuff very, very simple and very easy to do.
Yeah, Tabletop Simulator is a fantastic tool. It's just not a fantastic tool for D&D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's going on, Hagocha? How you doing, my friend? Yeah, a lot of people know Kingdom Death. It's really cool. It's right up my alley. It's also like it's a board game that has like a $500 box cost. But it's like the coolest. If you haven't seen it, just look it up. It's amazing. All right. Control Alt Frank says, I love making maps, whether it's giant continents with every city on it, or just small throwaway encounter maps. But I usually put in either 20 minutes minimum for a throwaway map. Why is this hobby so addicting? The thing that's interesting to me, and this is actually what I love about the hobby that we all the space that we all sort of inhabit. It doesn't really matter where your passion or your talent lies. I think like there's a way for everyone to kind of put what they like doing into the hobby in some way. Like, I love going into Photoshop and taking like weeks and making a photorealistic battle map. I don't know why I like doing that. But if someone doesn't like doing that, but they do like, I don't know, they do like calligraphy, or they do like, you know, something else, like, you can still put your passion in and make what comes out is going to be an awesome game, because like you're creating something that you will find a way, if you love crochet, like you will find a way to work that into your game in some way, you know?
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of, like, we have a viewer who loves our show. Yeah. And she made freaking little crocheted dudes of our characters, which
that's
is
awesome,
so cool.
Man.
I love that stuff. So you can just be creative, and if map making is your thing, you can bring a map. If you can bring a cool looking map to your encounters and stuff, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's and that's sort of you know, it's one of those things, and so that's what I tell people all the time. Like, if you do like map making, then that's probably what you'll end up putting the most work into when you are prepping for a session, because that's what because that's where you can pour your effort, and that what it means is that your games will probably focus on maps a lot more. but it also means when it does, those maps will be really cool, and you'll also know them inside and out because, you know, they're yours and you worked on them and you put that effort in. But if you don't like that, if you don't like map making, you know, whatever you do like that's something, that's how you can prepare for your game. That's how you can kind of contribute, and that'll, you know, it's all great. Like, just do whatever you like doing, and find a way to share that with your players and your friends, and, you know, we all. I love when players do something for the game. It doesn't really matter what it is. Like, I don't care if my players aren't artists, but they happen to be a chef, you know, like, do so, you know, use your passion, and we'll find a way to make it part of the game. Dean Cuddy says, don't know if, did they answer the question? Yes, I forget which question that was.
I just know, yes, we did, because I remember him saying, you said his name, and I'm like,
yes.
Dang, what a nerd.
That, he actually said that. That actually happened. Oh, it was the one about classes, and you said, fuck druids.
I didn't say fuck druids. I said, thematically, druids bore me. That's all it is. That's all. It's very simple.
But the subtext.
No, because, like, druids, the thing with druids is they're, like, one of the most powerful freaking classes.
In 3.5, they were, yeah, definitely.
They were insane in 3.5 and Pathfinder. Like, they were very powerful, but just for whatever reason, thematically, they bored the crap out of me.
Yeah. Also, this is just a throwaway for Control Alt Frank, because he was saying he really likes map making. You should definitely come hang out if you have the time on Monday, and chill with me for Map Monday, because I just started doing my map making on stream, and it may be really boring to watch. I don't know. I think it's really boring to watch, but it's, if you like map making, you want to share philosophies and ideas and help, you know, make cool stuff, then that's definitely cool. You know, we'd love to have you, and, you know, come talk about maps and stuff with me, because I will waste so much time on a map, and I talked about this on the show. I'm like, I will put comparatively, like, if it'll probably take me maybe a full day to do a single room in a dungeon or a building, and 90% of the time the players will just pass right through that room, like never even look at it. And so that is a map maker's life. but I love it because it's a fun art project. All right, I actually had another question. Hold on, where is it here? I gotta find it on Twitter here. Yes, I had a couple of questions that people sent to me, and we're just gonna grab a couple more, and then we are we'll see how we're doing on time. Oh yeah. Okay, so this is from Farm and City Guy, and he says, I recently tried to start a D&D game. I got interest from a lot of people, but when it came time, only a few people came out. How do I get people to come to the games?
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for in a game. Like, getting a group of gamers together for D&D can be very difficult. I honestly think one of the best things you can do, if you're into trying it out online, there's tons of groups and games on Roll20.
Oh yeah,
tons of them that you can just join, and they'll start a campaign with you, or you can run a campaign and people will join you. If you want to play with a bunch of people to try out D&D, I highly suggest checking out Roll20 and trying it there and see if it's up your alley.
Yeah.
Do you think the same thing, or?
Yeah. So I've answered variations on this question a few times in the past, and first and foremost, this happens in general, is people will, even on Roll20, and I know this because I was a DM on Roll20 long before I started streaming, people will always express interest because interest is free. You know,
right.
It doesn't cost anything to say, hey, I'd love to do that, and to put your name on a piece of paper. Yeah. It does cost you something to actually show up, you know, to show up when you agree to show up. That requires commitment. And so, like, when I was DMing on Roll20, my usual assumption is that even when I finished getting a group together, probably about only 2/3 of the people would actually make it to the first session, and probably only half of those people would be there by the second session. Yeah. You know, because that's just, and that's not a knock on those players. That's just a, you know, it's how people are. You know, some people, it's easy to say yes without knowing what you're getting into. It's easy to, you know, to kind of sign up for something and then realize maybe this isn't for me, you know, this and that.
One of my favorite things, one of my favorite ways to do it, like, in person, is get a bunch of friends together for beers and chat and, like, casually go over the books and talk about characters and stuff like that. Like, that's a good way to gauge interest, rather. It's just make it casual. Don't make it like you're coming over to play D&D.
Yeah.
Be like, come over, we're going to hang out, we're going to chat, we're going to have a beer, we'll have some food.
Yeah.
We'll throw on something on TV, and we'll look at D&D books. And then, like, if they're, like, super into it, then you start going and pushing a little bit harder. But if they're not, you at least have beers, food, and TV.
Yeah, it's if you're not gonna do something on Roll20, like if you really are trying to do something in person, which is fine, and it's honestly, if you can, I would suggest it. But yeah, that's a pretty solid way. Is like whenever I talk about players, I always tell them, like, give them the beer test. You can't see me, but chat can. I'm holding up my beer and I say, the beer test is very simple. If I could sit down and enjoy a beer with you, then you would probably be a good fit for my game, you know?
Right.
But if I don't think that I would enjoy kind of hanging out and just talking and shooting the shit, whatever, then, it's, you know, we're probably not going to get along in a game. But yeah, that's like, have a character building party, like, you know, or something. Yeah. Like, ask people if they want to come over and just, you know, just chill, you know, session 0 stuff. Just be like, hey, you want to come over? Maybe we'll watch a movie. We'll talk D&D, and then, you know, if you want to, we'll make you a character, and if it's cool, then you'll get together the next week and we'll do it again. Only this time we'll roll dice. It really depends on the on who you're engaging with. If you're engaging with people who have never been in the hobby before, or you're engaged, like, if you're just in, like, college and you're just talking to people who are passing by, who are like, oh, I've never played tabletop before, you're gonna get a different response than if, for example, you go down to your local hobby shop and be like, who wants to play D&D, and everyone there knows exactly what they're getting into. You're gonna have a very, very different response. So it's hard to say exactly, but if people aren't coming out, or people are kind of flaking out on you, you know, try slowing the pace down a little bit, or try going to a place like Roll20 where you know everyone is there specifically to play. You know, they're in the looking for group thing because they're looking to play a game.
Yep.
Cranky Old Mage says, will you marry me and be the DM of my life? I'm already the DM for too many people. I don't have time for any more relationships.
Also, yeah, that's a good point. If you're gonna start a new game,
make sure you have
taking up the DM role. If you end up taking up the DM role, understand that there is a good chance if this continues, you'll be the DM forever.
Oh yeah, it's just I've been with. See, that's the thing, is I'm cursed in the fact that I like DMing. Like, I really.
Yeah, of course.
I prefer it, I think, to being a player. It's just there's a lot of stuff about what, you know, about how much you have to focus on, and how I suck when I don't have 100 things to kind of, you know, to look at. But when I remember way back when, my Friday group that I've been with for, bear in mind, again, 3 years with these guys, and I know at least 3 of them DM for groups, for other groups, like in their own time. We weren't gonna play a session one day. We were gonna skip a session because we had a person absent, and we didn't want to do like a story session without you know, without everyone there. So we just decided we weren't gonna play that week. And so they didn't want to do a one shot or something. I was just went to one of my other players, like, hey man, do you want to like DM a one shot or something? And he was like, why? And I'm like, because we're not playing this week. He's like, yeah, but you're the DM. And I'm like, you have 2 groups of your own. What do you mean? But no, they will never look at you as anything else. You are.
Nope.
That's who you are.
It's Scott's curse, man. That's our DM's curse. Like, anytime anybody else has ended up DMing and he's gotten to play, that has lasted like 5 sessions before the roles end up switching and he takes over the DM. I remember I was DMing a campaign, and it lasted like maybe like 3 months, maybe like 8 to 12 sessions or so. And then by the end, I'm like, I kind of like, I was like, I really like the world I made. Can I play and you DM and just take the world over? And I gave him like my story beats, like what was the plan, and then he like after some debate he took over as DM, and begrudgingly at first. And he took all my story beats. He's like, no, I'm doing my thing. Kept the world, everything that happened up to that point happened, and like aspects of it stuck around, but he did his own thing with it, and I appreciated that. I loved seeing him take something that I made and then do his own thing with it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever agree to take someone else's like homebrew world and homebrew story, only because not because I feel like I need to create something from scratch, but also almost because part of it is I don't know if I'd want to like let them down with how I handled it.
So to clarify, it wasn't a homebrew world. What I had done was I took Eberron.
Yeah.
So we're playing in Eberron, and I had Ravenloft slowly creeping into Eberron and corrupting Eberron, and Ravenloft was like not merging, but like some reason like Eberron or Ravenloft was like leaking into Eberron.
Yeah.
The players needed to figure out why. I knew why, and then he changed all of it, and my reason why wasn't the reason why anymore. But he kept the fact that Ravenloft was still like for some reason up against Eberron in like the astral world, and why was it coming in? It was. Yeah, so I can, but if it was a homebrew world, yeah, I think I'd have a hard time handing that over to a DM.
Yeah, again, it's it's just like, oh, do I want to let this guy down? Because I'll butcher it. I will butcher the shit out of his world, and he's gonna regret every second of it.
You have to accept that though, man. Like if you're gonna hand your world over to somebody else, you gotta accept that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that I don't think a lot of people don't hand like a lot of people are very protective of their homebrews though. Like very few people will be like, here's my homebrew, DM in it, please. Oh man, there's an interesting there was an interesting thing I wanted to, it was in chat and I'm trying to find it here. Oh yeah, so John Arenicus was talking, and a couple of people were talking about what we were talking about before, about players introducing players to a group or kind of finding players, and one of the things that he mentioned was and this is something I dealt with. He specifically said a lot of people get self-conscious about being kind of compelled to play in character or role play or something like that, like especially if they're new. It can be sort of intimidating if you're sort of foisting that on them. This is a question that I've actually answered and I've discussed a lot in different ways, but one of the things that I love, it's been a thing that I get a lot of pleasure and a lot of satisfaction out of as a DM, is taking new players that maybe have no idea what's going on or are not actively comfortable getting into character and role playing, and kind of fixing that, like making them kind of feel comfortable and kind of get into that via gameplay and via kind of engaging with them narratively. Like it's when players tell me all the time that they're not comfortable like doing a voice for their character, it's like, well, when you meet every single NPC in the game is gonna have like a different voice, and they're all gonna talk directly to you,
Right. Yeah.
It kind of becomes a normalizing thing. Like eventually you will kind of say like, oh, well, maybe I can, maybe my dwarf doesn't have to talk like I'm talking right now, maybe I can try and do a little bit something, whatever. I really enjoy that because I like seeing the players kind of come into their own in that, in that way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like that is something new players need to kind of understand, is that role playing is going to feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but if with a good DM like you, you're gonna make it, you're gonna normalize it for them, and that's important.
Yeah, it's again, I never really thought about it, but it was something a player told me a long time ago. I just sort of always talk in character because I just do it. I'm just an idiot like that, and I'll do it anyway.
That's the best way to play.
But it was yeah, no, it's certainly fun for me, but again, we started playing, and one of my players was trying to do an accent, and his accent was, he was trying to do like this kind of Russian accent, so it was like, it was a little bit like this, he's trying to do a Russian accent. And
right.
So he came to me after one session, and he was like, I wanted to do this accent for my character, and I tried it, and it was really shoddy, and I wasn't really sure about it, and I was gonna give it up. But the fact that like when you do your NPCs, you're always like 100% in character, you're like 100% committed to that voice acting and stuff, like it kind of made me not want to drop what I was doing and try harder. And I'm like, well, then absolutely, that's what people ask me all the time, how do you get into like voicing characters and making that not weird? And it's like, you just gotta commit to it, you know?
Right, yeah, you just gotta go for it. You just gotta do it.
It doesn't matter if it sounds like it doesn't. If you watched me while I'm at work or something, or in my car, like I'm just monologuing as NPCs, like trying to figure out what they're gonna do.
The character, yeah.
And it's just like because I will go from 0 to in character, like because I enjoy it. But for some people, that's hard to commit to, and it's like you just gotta throw shame out the window.
Yes, you certainly do. Throw caution to the wind, my friend, and go for it.
Oh man, do you really like get into your voices and stuff like when you do?
Yeah, usually. Like, I can't think of one that I actually gave like an accent, but depending on the race that I'm playing, I will typically adapt my voice to it. I think my personality adapts more than anything else. Like with my half orc, like I speak in a like dark or guttural way, obviously, because he's a half orc. But moreover, like I will attempt to adapt my mannerisms to the character I'm playing for the entirety of the session. I really like to get into character and stay there, because I find once I'm there, it's easier to just stay there and play the character that I'm playing. Whether he's a frantic talker and he's like really weird and kind of twitchy, or like with Thonk, who is the half orc cleric, he's brooding. He doesn't really talk much. He's silent. He's very much a behind the scenes character. He's a side character for most of it. While the other people are talkers, and that's what I thrive in more. I really just like taking on the persona of the character.
The thing I think as a DM, like I will jump into a character I will jump into a character's voice in a split second and do it. The problem I think I have as a DM is I very rarely prep what I'm gonna do, you know, unless it's something like, unless it's like a villain in which I can sort of do a monologue or something, you know, as I very rarely prep what I'm gonna do for NPCs. So when an NPC comes up and I'm like, it's literally what happens is this, it's in my head, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't think about what this guy's gonna sound like, let me just start talking and hope it goes somewhere. And then I just end up with like a random like, oh, you know, maybe he's an elf and talks like this, or you know, or maybe he has a higher pitch voice and he talks a little bit like this, and he has a little talk fast. And I remember there's this one character who was Lowry Vouse, and she's just a fast talking like elf woman who loves torture. And I'm just like, I just started talking, and I'm just like, hi, my name's Lowry, and I really like torture, and there's a skull over there, and there's something. I don't even remember what I said, but somehow like the player's like, this is fucking fascinating. I wish I really need to sort of do more acting stuff and kind of prepare those things and kind of work to explore characters a little bit more before I get to them. I think that's probably one of the things I need to work on as a DM, because I don't like just diving in and hope, like, because sometimes when you just dive into a voice or something, you're like, oh, this doesn't work, this isn't what I wanted.
Yeah. You don't know it till it's too late.
Yeah. Imp voice. Everyone really likes my imp voice. It's kind of
that's a really good imp voice.
Everyone likes it. No one likes it. That's the truth.
No, man, I'm gonna. It's good. I think it's good.
Voices are weird. I just one of those weird people who loves doing them.
It draws you into the world. I think it's great. It's the way to
go. Yeah, one of the Control Alt Franks is one of the best things to get into RP. Yeah, everyone says, a lot of people are saying this is their most favorite part. I think it's a really cool way to give characters personality and differentiate them too. I have a problem though. I only have one villain voice, and it's all Illidan. Every villain is Illidan from Warcraft.
Illidan.
I don't know how to not do that. It's like my only villainous voice.
I mean, Illidan's a good role model, I guess.
He is, and I really love Liam O'Brien, but it's like I wish I could do something else and make it sound threatening, but no, it's all like this. Anyway, we are kind of coming up on 10 o'clock. It has been an arduous 2 hours of talking and questioning. We are all dying here, but no, seriously, thank you guys so much for all your questions. I want a huge props to everyone keeping the chat going and keeping those questions coming. we're gonna start wrapping up things in a couple minutes, but obviously I want to say a huge thanks to my friend Mike Martin for hanging out. Yeah, absolutely great time. And in chat, let us know if you guys had a good time. Before we do get out of here, obviously we're gonna do some announcements and some last minute stuff. But real quick, Mike, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you get up to on the internet, and where they can find you?
So I'm on the internet. I'm mostly known as Mathis Games. I run a few channels. I have my Mathis Games channel. I have the Judge Mathis Games channel. I do comedy reviews for video games. And then tabletop stuff. I run Lost Initiative Show, twitch.tv/Lost Initiative Show. Every Wednesday from 9 p.m. EST to 1 a.m. EST, we run a 5th edition Faerun campaign called Edge of Morality. And then Thursdays at the same time frame, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. EST, it's Edge of the Empire Star Wars. We have Sam Strippin, Jesse Cox, Margaret Crone, Krendor, myself, and a bunch of other people, Bear Taffy, and then Scott DMs both of those games. So you can go check us out there. It's been a blast. Thank you again for having me, man. It was great.
Absolutely. And Scott, who has been talking mad shit on Twitter, because apparently he's jealous and is gonna need his own episode. So we will definitely make that happen. But seriously, thank you guys. Go check out Lost Initiative Show. The link is in chat. And for those of you who are just joining us, this is the Exploding Dice channel. My name is Askren. I am your host and dungeon master here, where we play live D&D every Saturday and Sunday. We also do this show called Fuzzy Dice, where I hang out with the best of the best in content creators and streamers and just all around nerdy people. Just some last minute announcements. If you have not already, hit it up. Give that giveaway link a hit with your mouse. You can win a brand new player's handbook and dice set. The player's handbook is right over there. I don't want to get up to get it because it's too far away, but you can win it yourself. That is our giveaway for February, and it's going to be awesome. Don't go running away because we're going to be raiding someone. I gotta check who's online, but we're gonna find someone here. And what else? Also, obviously, Saturday and Sunday, Writhing Moon and Jade Regent. One is an open legend horror campaign. Open Legend is an open source RPG system. It's really cool. It's developed by a friend of mine, and it has been a blast to play in. And the other is Jade Regent, which is a 5th edition D&D campaign. We also have Map Monday, and I do drawing streams on Mondays. So all kinds of content during the week. The schedule is on Twitter. If you haven't already, just follow me at Askren on Twitter, and you can see all of that stuff. Also, we did, if you guys haven't noticed, we hit our donation goal for February, like, yesterday, thanks to an awesome, generous donation from one of our friends. And so we're gonna be pushing the goal up, but there will be I think because we hit the goal for February, those of you, so you guys may not know, but February is sometime in February is my birthday, and we are going to. I think we're probably gonna have we're gonna get drunk and we're gonna play like a Tomb of Horrors game or something like that. We're gonna do something, some kind of fun, deadly, awesome dungeon that makes the drinking rules on our channel work out even better. So you will see the notification about that on Twitter. I think that's really it. That's the last of the announcements. So seriously, thank you guys for hanging out. If you had fun, and I certainly hope you did, hit that follow button, check us out, and come with us as we go raid. Let's check out who's online right now. Unmade, they're probably, I think they're ending soon. I'm trying to see who's live right now. Yeah, you know what? Why don't we go over to Unmade Gaming? We'll hit them up. They are friends of mine, and we'll do that. So, exclamation point raid Unmade Gaming right there. I think that's it. Go hit them out. Let them know Exploding Dice raid in the chat. Tell them where you're coming from. We will see you next time. From me and from Mike, we will see you. But as always, thanks for coming out, and don't let Dice Lou get his tentacles on you, because he gets very handsy when he does. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Take
Thanks
care.
Again. Bye.